Hello everyone, how are we doing today? I hope you guys are doing pretty good. Welcome to the 15th episode of the Loki Sports Show. So basically this one is going to be about the aftermath of Super Bowl 57. It took a little while to come up with this video rather than just do it the day after, just because the day after it was still really heated, because I'll get into why it was heated, but it was mainly because the referees calls and no calls, stuff like that. I'm also going to be covering some of the NBA All-Star Weekend stuff that I think is interesting. So, without further ado, let's get into it.
Three. He throws to the end zone. Davis 4-3 in the win. Oh, it's good. Crosby in on goal. Backhander. He scores. And good. 49ers win it.
Okay, so the main thing with Super Bowl 57 would just be that it was like this close. It was really close to being like an all-time great Super Bowl, but everyone knows there was this one questionable call in particular, but there was a couple other just kind of gimmicks I didn't like. One would just be there was a hit on Eagles running back Kenneth Gainwell. He caught a reception, and then I believe it was Nick Bolton absolutely leveled him, and then he picked up the ball and he took it back to the house. That one was not rolled a complete pass, and that was a big momentum swing, which went the Eagles' way at first. And then, of course, I'm going to wait until I talk about the main penalty, obviously. But I got to give credit to Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts, the Eagles quarterback, played out of his mind. 4 touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns, 1 passing touchdowns. And he had a great performance, because everyone's talking about getting rid of the QB push, just because he was able to pick up he picked up a touchdown. He picked up also a lot of first downs by using the QB push that everyone's been talking about recently. So if you do that so good, the NFL wants to ban it, I think you did something right. And of course, Jalen Hurts had a really good game. Even the tight end from the Kansas City Chiefs, Travis Kelce, said that even if he lost, he still thought Jalen Hurts had a shot of getting that Super Bowl MVP. But of course, that did not end up happening. Patrick Mahomes on even one leg is still like insane. He came back from down 10 at halftime. Obviously he didn't throw for a lot of yards, but he was able to run for like critical first downs, even on one leg. He was obviously in a lot of pain, but whatever they gave him during halftime, whatever drug they gave him, this worked, because at the when they came back from the Super Bowl halftime, which is a little bit longer than a normal halftime, the Chiefs were on fire, and they were able to destroy that deficit. And then even when the Eagles answered back, it was not enough, and they were able to overcome it. This one was one of the highest scoring Super Bowls in history. Things like top 5, top 3, I believe. So it's up there for sure. This one had, I believe, 72 points in total from both the Eagles and Chiefs, and obviously that's awesome, right? Especially for the Super Bowl, which is not necessarily just for football fans, for everybody. So for casual viewers, seeing a lot of points, a lot of touchdowns, is obviously really nice to see. No one wants to, especially for a more casual fan, no one wants to see like a 3-13 game. I'm talking about the Rams Patriots Super Bowl a couple years back. So having a shootout was great. Just the way it ended was very anticlimactic, especially for such a high scoring game. So let's get into the main controversy without further ado. So there was a play on a 3rd down, I believe, against James Bradbury, where basically he pressed Juju Smith, but then it was kind of like a little bit of a hold after they got past the first couple yards. And then the main thing which people are rightfully upset about would just be not necessarily that it was the right penalty call, it's just that during the Super Bowl, during the playoffs, the referees are supposed to swallow their whistles a little bit, kind of keep the flags in check, just especially because people want to see them play physical, play hard, rather than just call every ticky-tack foul. But of course, the Eagles got screwed with that holding penalty, gave the Chiefs great field position. They were able to run down the clock, kick the field goal. The Eagles did not have enough time to come back to respond. And as I mentioned before, the refs were not calling anything in that game. So it was a lot of stuff that they could have probably called, but it was a relatively really clean game until that point where they called that holding penalty. And the reason why I think this is a bad look for the NFL is because in obviously the 2018 season, the 2019 NFC Championship game, we had the no call against the Saints, and then next year we had the no call against Nick Bosa on the holding call on 3rd and 10, 3rd and 15, I believe. And then, of course, 2020 was pretty ref free. There was that one kind of jersey hold at the end. I remember again in the NFC Championship game with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Green Bay Packers against, I believe it was Ellen Lazard. No one called, and that I kind of got some people, and people forgot about that one. But then, of course, 2021 we had Logan Wilson and like the phantom holding call again. This year we had the James Bradbury call. It's almost like 4 or 5 years now we've had just critical calls that just ruin a team's chance to win a Super Bowl or go to a Super Bowl. And obviously, the refs in the NFL are not perfect, and no one really can expect them to be perfect. It's such a on the spot kind of job, and to have them make every correct call, make sure to not call things that are not supposed to be fouls, etc., is really ridiculous. And a lot of people on Twitter were like really saying how we need to be replaced by AI and stuff like that. I don't think we're there quite yet, but I understand, especially if you're an Eagles fan, you're probably really pissed that this was probably the best team in Eagles franchise history, and they did not win the Super Bowl because if assuming the Eagles defense holds strong or whatever happens, who knows how much time they could have burnt. Maybe they have come back down the field. Who knows? But we'll never know just because of how the Super Bowl ended. But still, also, two things can be true at once. I think the penalty was a backbreaker, but at the same time, the Eagles' the momentum was not in their favor either, just because it was very obvious to me that the Jonathan Gannon defense was just getting shredded. It got, especially in the second half, they had a 10-point lead, and they blew the lead. And of course, a big part of that was just because the Chiefs O-line played really good, and no one's talking about that. Not enough people are talking about that, in my opinion, just because they allowed 0 sacks against the highest sack team in the NFL this year. They had like over 70 sacks, I believe, 70 sacks, around that kind of ballpark. So the fact they did not allow a single sack, especially when they were trying to get after Mahomes because they knew that he was not going to be able to scramble as effectively, just shows that O-line is built to win championships, and people gotta give them a little bit more credit. People were talking about Mahomes and Kelsey, and obviously rightfully so. They're big parts of it, but that O-line kept the whole thing going, because if that would have been like in the 49er game or some other games the Eagles dominated, yeah, Mahomes would have been a sitting duck. But because that O-line gave him enough protection, it really was able to help the Chiefs win the Super Bowl. But then, so if you're both teams, obviously if you're the Chiefs, you're very happy you just won the goddamn Super Bowl. You can't really ask for too much there. I think they should just bring back the majority of the roster. Obviously if they can get upgrades in free agency, draft or whatever, do so. But the Eagles are a little bit more of a question mark after the Super Bowl, just because I don't want to say this was an all-in year, because they have a top 10 draft pick courtesy of the Saints. But then, of course, a lot of their players are going to be free agents because they're on one-year deals, expiring deals, etc., etc. Jalen Hurts is going to get paid some big bucks. I heard the contract is going to at least be $45 million a year. So when you're going to have to shell out that kind of money, hard cap league, there's no luxury tax you can get past. You're going to have to figure out how to be smart. Maybe you can hope Jalen Hurts takes a pay cut, backload the contract, kick the can down the road. I'm pretty sure a GM like Howie Roseman can figure it out. I'm not doubting his ability to do so. I'm just saying that if you're an Eagles fan, you have to just kind of take going into the offseason with a grain of salt. You're going to lose some free agents. This is how things are going to be. Just better hope the draft comes around. You can hopefully kind of replenish some of the guys you're going to lose. And of course, I'm not sure what's happening with Fletcher Cox, but I imagine he might be retiring soon. Jason Kelsey certainly might be retiring soon. So I know they drafted a center. I can't recall the name off the top of my head, unfortunately. But they got a center, I believe, in the second, third round this year. So it's obviously already kind of knew that Jason Kelsey's not going to have too much more time left in the league. So they got his replacement, but still, it's going to be a lot of probably pieces that are going to have to replace, pay. I'm pretty sure Miles Sanders will not be with the Eagles next year, because I imagine he wants to get a little bit of a pay raise after the season he had. But I'm pretty sure the Eagles are going to have a lot more contracts to give around. So who really knows what's going to happen with the Eagles? For Kansas City, you have Mahomes, you have Andy Reid, you're fine, really. As long as those two guys are on your team, you're fine. They lost Bieniemy right now, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. But as I mentioned before, you have Mahomes, you're going to have Travis Kelce, also Andy Reid. you're gonna be more than fine, really, and that really good offensive line. I know Orlando Brown's a free agent, but I'm pretty sure they'll bring him back because Orlando Brown would really, of course, any player would want to win more championships, and he obviously did a great job with Kansas City. So we'll have to see what both teams kind of do in the offseason. I would imagine the Eagles restructure a lot of contracts, try to play with a little bit more funny money, trying to make sure that things are going to be relatively intact. But I will not be surprised if they lose a couple pieces. Maybe they draft a new running back in the later round so they can replace Miles Sanders, or because I believe Kenneth Gainwell and Boston Scott, one of those two are also free agents, so they have to figure out which one they want to pay, etc. So also with the Eagles, you have to understand with the turnover they're gonna be having, they lost both their offensive coordinator and their defensive coordinator, so we'll have to see going about that going forward. But let's talk about the first of their losses, which would be Shane Steichen to the Indianapolis Colts. For me, this move for the Colts would just be, they're just gonna get a new, kind of like a younger head coach, offensive minded coach, obviously, so they can help whatever QB they're gonna draft. From just kind of like the rumblings I'm hearing, the whispers I'm hearing, they're really looking to trade up to number 1 overall with the Bears. They're gonna probably grab Bryce Young. I heard that their owner was really talking very brightly about Bryce Young, so I would imagine they're gonna bring Shane Steichen and help develop Bryce Young so he can be their franchise guy. That's what I imagine the hiring was for, and of course, hopefully develop some other players, because we know the Colts offense was really anemic last year. They had other than Michael Pittman Jr., their receiving corps was really meek, so they're hoping that an offensive-minded guy can help really fix that, help end their running QB situation in that era. The second coordinator that got hired from the Eagles would be Jonathan Gannon to the Cardinals. I personally love this move, but I'm not loving this move for the reason the Cardinals fans, just because obviously Jonathan Gannon, I felt, especially to the NFC West by the Cardinals, he was hired probably because he beat the 49ers in the NFC Championship game, and obviously his defense did a really good job, but the main thing with that would just be, I don't know how much of that was just pure talent. Like, look at the Eagles roster, look at their secondary, look at how much names they have, look at their defensive line. Like, I feel most people who are any defensive coordinator could have done similar results. I'm not trying to diminish what he did, but if every Eagles fan I've talked to, and I've talked to a bunch recently, especially after the Super Bowl loss, if they're all saying Gannon is gone, we're happy Gannon is gone, Gannon is over party, if I hear stuff like that, and people are celebrating someone leaving, it's not a good look for them, especially with obviously he beat the 49ers NFC Championship game, and the Cardinals have drafted they literally drafted Isaiah Simmons because he was supposed to stop George Kittle. Like, that's literally why they draft players, to stop people in their division rather than trying to acquire fit. And I think this will come and bite them on the rear end again, just because Gannon was a big part of why the Eagles blew that 10-point lead. The offense still was able to score a couple touchdowns in the second half. It was literally just their defense got shredded. Very predictable kind of cover 2 defense. So not really sure what the Cardinals are trying to do, because my main thing with the Cardinals would just be they hired Cliff Kingsbury so they can help develop Kyler Murray. They wanted Sean Payton. Sean Payton did not obviously go there. He went to the Broncos. So if you're the Cardinals, you would probably want an offensive guy as your head coach. Maybe you could have gone like an Eric Bieniemy, who really knows, but you obviously want an offensive guy so you can help Kyler Murray develop, so you can help him grow, because he's had flashes, he has great potential, but it just hasn't really developed in a full season where he can play, the whole team plays a good 17-16 game season, because I know they always kind of collapsed under the Kingsbury era in the second half especially. So my main thing, initially I just thought, well, Jonathan Gannon might just be a placeholder coach, just because Kyler Murray is going to miss half the year, or at least, just because he had the torn ACL. That's a very hard injury to recover from. I wish him the best, because knee injuries are some of the worst, because I've had a knee injury before, and it just sucks, because it's one thing you obviously have to physically recover, but the mental aspect of it, where you can't, the first couple weeks you're back, you really cannot go full speed, and I would imagine he has a lot of pressure to do so, because the internet makes a lot of memes about him, like the COD Kyler, stuff like that, etc., etc. So I'd imagine he's gonna miss like at least half the season, and their backup is Colt McCoy. Colt McCoy is certainly serviceable, but you don't want him as a starter in 2023 as your full-time starter as well, especially for half a year. But then I saw Jonathan Gannon got a contract. I didn't see the money amount, but he got 5 years on his contract. So it says not like, oh, we're going to hire a coach for this year, because we know this year might suck more because Kyler Murray's hurt, and then next year we'll see who else comes available. They dedicated 5 years of their money to Jonathan Gannon, and I'm just not sure what the Cardinals are doing. I know I have a really good buddy. He's probably listening to this right now. He's probably tired of me crapping on the Cardinals, but once again, I just don't know what the Cardinals, like, what their plan is, just because they're hiring a defensive coordinator when it's obvious they have a younger quarterback who still needs a guy to kind of help really coach him through. They fired the majority of their staff. They fired their old GM Keim just because there was that whole thing where he had like the medical issues. Then it turned out he might have blamed the coach for something that happened in another in Mexico City. Who really knows what's happening with that? There's a lot of drama with the Cardinals, and if they're gonna hire a new coach, you might as well keep everyone. But they want to trade DeAndre Hopkins. But speaking of the DeAndre Hopkins things, apparently because he took performance enhancing drugs, his no trade contract is voided, so he can basically be traded without his permission, I believe. I'll have to make sure to look into that legal contract and the wording in that later, but still, I just don't know what the Cardinals' plan is. Are they trying to just hope Kyler Murray develops like an offensive coordinator or like another coach, and then have Jonathan Gannon just try to take over the defense? Is that their plan? I'm not really sure, and I feel most teams that win the Super Bowl or go to the Super Bowl have the way it works, they have a really good offensively minded coach and a really independent defensive coordinator. Like that's like the recipe I've noticed for most coaching staff. Just because Andy Reid's obviously a great offensive mind. Spagnuolo mainly handles the defense. Andy Reid doesn't do too much in that part, from what I can tell. Shanahan has had two great defensive coordinators with Robert Saleh and D'Amico Ryans. They handle the defense entirely. Sean McVay, I am blanking on the defensive coordinator's name. I believe it's Raheem Morris, but Sean McVay handles the offense. He lets his defensive coordinator really just take control of the defense. And that's how most great teams that have gone to the Super Bowl, that have always gone to the championship round recently, that's what they do. And the Cardinals are not doing that. So who really knows what their plan is? I don't know what their plan is. And if you're a Cardinals fan, if you're listening to me talking about this, don't be shy. Tell me what you think the Cardinals are doing, what you think they should be doing, because they have a top whatever pick. Honestly, because they have, I believe, a top 5 pick, I would not be surprised if they ended up trading down just so they can get a QB hungry team. They can draft Will Levis or whoever. I don't know what's going on with the draft right now, just because there's a lot of interesting prospects. I've been doing a little bit of research lately, watching some film, but with how teams are kind of really evaluating first round quarterbacks, just because the reason why a guy, this is kind of off topic now, but basically the reason why a guy like Anthony Richardson or Will Levis, a lot of people say they're raw, and that's a rightfully aired criticism, but the main thing of why a lot of these guys who might have been like second round prospects before are now first round prospects are because when you're a first round pick, you get a 5th year option. That's a team based option, so you get control for an extra year over later round picks. So if you're the Cardinals, I would imagine, I don't know who their new GM is, but if you're the new GM, you hopefully will be able to leverage that pick, get some assets for Kyler Murray, get him some weapons, get him some help, offensive line, defense, whatever you got to do. Maybe you can use those picks to trade for another player, just kind of flip them. Who really knows? I would imagine that's what they should be doing, because teams want 2 things on rookie contracts. They want a quarterback on a rookie contract. They want wide receivers on rookie contracts. And with how valuable both positions are, if you're the Cardinals with that top 5 pick, you should really look into leveraging those picks, obviously. So that's what I kind of have to say about this. Ended up becoming more of a, I'm not really sure what the Cardinals' direction is kind of topic, but still, that's one thing you really have to pay attention to. I wonder what the Cardinals are doing, because I outright so awful they can get the number one overall pick. I could be wrong on that actually, but they're obviously not good enough, so they can really be competing with how the NFC might get a lot better. So who knows? Obviously, another aspect of the Super Bowl 57 aftermath would just be that Eric Bieniemy got hired from the Kansas City Chiefs. He got hired as the Washington Commanders offensive coordinator. So I don't have too much to say about this. This just happened a couple hours ago. But first, I would just want to say that I think this is, if you're Eric Bieniemy, you haven't not gotten a coaching opportunity, head coaching opportunity, even though obviously Mahomes is great and the offense of Kansas City has been like top 5, or at least top 1 recently. So we're probably thinking that maybe if you go to the Commanders, you're going to go from Mahomes and Andy Reid to Taylor Heinicke and Ron Rivera. That's not as good of a coaching gig as Kansas City, but if you can turn that ship around, get Taylor Heinicke to look good, or Carson Wentz, I have no idea what the Washington Commander situation is, or even Sam Howell. If you develop one of those guys, or whoever, you make them look good, make the whole offense click, and overall just really respected, you'd probably get a head coaching gig, because it's one thing to have Andy Reid and Mahomes, but if you're working miracles like Sam Howell and Ron Rivera as your wingmen, I think that's a completely different coaching case, just because I think a lot of it would just have to be teams see how much talent he has in Kansas City, and how Andy Reid is very credited for what happened in Kansas City, even though from what I can tell, it's not the case. That Eric Bieniemy does do a lot with the coordination and all that stuff, so we'll have to see what's going on with that. But I hope Eric Bieniemy does get a head coaching gig sometime in the future. All right, so basically, 3 of the coordinators from the Super Bowl teams have already gone to different teams. So that's going to be very interesting to see kind of the turnover and how that's going to play out going forward. But of course, right now that the NFL is over, I will be doing more prospect research, some evaluations coming forward. So if you like that kind of stuff, mock drafts, make sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, make sure to also comment, like the video, do what you got to do. And if you have any video suggestions, make sure to leave them down below. But let's talk about NBA All-Star Weekend. So we went from the Super Bowl to the All-Star Weekend, and as a sports guy, it's a really fun time because obviously the XFL is starting tomorrow, but I want to watch it, and I'll talk to you guys about it probably Monday or Tuesday, depending on how much games there are. So I'll get back to you guys on that. But right now, the NBA All-Star Weekend, let's talk about it. So I want to open up with the dunk contest, and I have a couple things to say about that. So what do I have to say? Basically, I don't want to just echo what everyone else has been saying like on Twitter and social media, but this has to be one of the weakest dunk contest lineups I've seen in a minute, just because our contestants are Trey Murphy, Kenny Martin Jr., Jericho Sims, and Mac McClung, who just got out of the G League, and he signed a 10-day with the 76ers. So it just sucks that before, it just seemed like there was a lot more actual like all-star participants. You'd see guys like I know Kobe Bryant did an a dunk contest. We had guys like Zach LaVine, Aaron Gordon, just much better player quality overall. Obviously, back in the day, Michael Jordan did one, especially Clyde Drexler. But now you don't really see like the top stars, like the stars you actually want to see in a dunk contest, do it anymore. And that just sucks, just because I feel that really ruins a big part of the NBA All-Star Weekends, because we get to see, normally back then we get to see like guys like Michael Jordan, and then of course we'd see guys like a Clyde Drexler, Clyde the Glide, just dunk it out. We saw even recently, like actually not recently, I think almost 7 years ago now. Damn, time flies. But back then you'd also see guys like Zach LaVine, Aaron Gordon just absolutely duke it out for the dunk contest trophy. But now no one who's like really like electrifying like a John Morant, and Zion Williamson when he's healthy, etc., are really doing the dunk contest anymore. And that kind of sucks, just because I'm not trying to slander anybody, don't take it as such, but I'm not really trying to see like a guy like Jericho Sims, like Kenny Martin do dunks on All-Star Weekend. I want to see the All-Stars do it, but of course it's their choice to opt out of the dunk contest. But hopefully maybe in the future they give more incentives, or they figure out a way for players to actually want to do it, but who really knows with that. The this is kind of off topic before I get to the 3-point contest stuff, but one thing I would really want to see, but I know no one in NBA would want to do, would be the proposed idea of doing like the NBA one-on-one contest, where basically it's like a tournament. You play every All-Star plays like a one-on-one match. I don't know what would be the best of, but basically you see guys like Embiid and Jokic, stuff like that. And it would be very fun for viewership. I would totally love to see like who would be like a really good matchup. Just like maybe like a Giannis versus like a Joel Embiid. That would be a really fun matchup. Or like a Kyrie Irving versus Luka Doncic. I know they're teammates now, but they're super good isolation scorers, obviously. Or a KD on Giannis. That's really fun as well. That would be a really fun experience. But obviously, no one in the NBA wants to do that, just because no one wants to get their ankles broken, or if they get done, like if something like that happens, everyone's gonna meme about it, talk about it on social media. It's not a good look if they get absolutely fooled by someone on in a one-on-one contest. So I can understand why, but it'd still be really fun. I like the entertainment of the idea, but in practicality, no one would ever want to opt into that. But let's talk about the NBA 3-point contest. So this could be pretty interesting. So what I kind of have to say about this would be the lineup is Tyrese Halliburton of the Indiana Pacers, Hero of the Miami Heat, Buddy Hield of the Pacers, Kevin Huerter of the Sacramento Kings, Damian Lillard of the Portland Trail Blazers, Lauri Markkanen of the Utah Jazz, Julius Randle of the Knicks, and Jason Tatum of the Boston Celtics. So obviously there's a couple players who I felt could have been in there who are still like kind of star players. Klay Thompson, Desmond Bane, and even like Jalen Brunson could have been better. Like a guy like Julius Randle. No offense to him, but Randle's like not even like top 20 in 3-point shooting this year. So that's one thing you kind of have to put into consideration. But the only thing with the NBA 3-point contest, obviously the names are pretty good. They have Buddy Hield, who's a no great 3-point shooter. They have Damian Lillard, a superstar. Jason Tatum was another star as well. But the main thing is, over Randle, I would love to see like Klay Thompson thrown in there. That would be really fun. Klay Thompson's obviously a great 3-point shooter, but the main thing would just be when you look at the guys who are actually like Isaiah Joe, like Mike Muscala. A lot of these guys, unfortunately, no one, unless you're like a diehard NBA guy, unless you actually do research in NBA, no one really knows who a lot of like these Isaiah Joe guys are. Like a Mike Muscala, and then I'm missing a bunch of other ones, but you kind of know what I mean. A lot of those guys, unfortunately, because they're not like super well known, they're not going to throw in the 3-point contest because no one wants to see a 3-point shootout between the actual the statistical leaders versus the actual stars who can shoot threes. So that kind of impacts a little bit. But I'm interested to see who will win this 3-point contest. I'm not really sure, but overall the star quality is not the worst. But unfortunately, talking about where the star quality is bad would have to be, unfortunately, the All-Star game. And the All-Star game is going to miss a lot of key players, and unfortunately, the majority of these guys are going to be the All-Star starters. So, first, Steph Curry has a lower leg injury. He's out. Kevin Durant has the MCL injury. He's out. Zion Williamson, hamstring injury, is out. Giannis has a wrist injury last night against the Chicago Bulls. He landed awkwardly on his wrist, and he was in a lot of pain, so he'll probably miss the All-Star game. Joel Embiid has a foot injury right now. He says that he might play through it, but just based on how his expressions were, he probably just wants to take the week off, so he can recover. He says he's not been good for like a month now, so those guys are questionable, and that's like 6 guys who are genuine stars that we're going to be missing out on. Obviously, we haven't seen LeBron versus KD in a game in a while. We haven't seen that in a while, and we're going to miss out again in the All-Star weekend. No Steph Curry, and that sucks because whenever Steph and Dame are on the same All-Star squad, that's always a fun sight because you get to see them just take wild 3-point shots, and they'll always hit them. It's actually insane how good those guys are at shooting the basketball. But Zion Williamson is a big superstar. He really brings all of recognition to the Pelicans. He's been hurt for a while now, and he re-aggravated his injury, so he might be hurt even longer. Giannis is a big superstar, so is Joel Embiid. So that sucks that we're going to be missing a lot. This NBA All-Star Weekend is not looking as hot as I would have liked it, because we're going to miss like 5 guys in the All-Star game who are normally supposed to be starters. The 3-point contest looks alright, but the dunk contest doesn't really intrigue me. No, I'm not really going out of my chair for like a guy like Trey Murphy or anything like that, unfortunately. But of course, I think today, guys, that's gonna be all for today. Just because I just want to talk about kind of like the Super Bowl 57, that aftermath. I want to talk about a little bit about the All-Star Weekend. But of course, tomorrow tomorrow basically, I'm gonna make sure that I'm gonna get you guys some 49er content. I'm gonna be talking about what we're gonna be doing with the roster. So if you're a 49er fan or if you're not, checking for that video. It's gonna be really good. And then after I'm done watching the exit file on the weekend, I'll come back and talk to you guys if it's worth your time or not. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and thank you guys for staying this long. We're almost 30 minutes in, so I understand people don't have the best viewership time now anymore. They're very unattentive, but still, if you guys just obviously subscribe, leave a like, etc., that'd be much appreciated. I'll talk to you guys later.